It's spring season. This is a time of year that my passion really comes into its own. I'm a gardener, a flower farmer, and recently turned into a florist as well as being a pastor. So that's a fun combination. But that really all started just a few years ago. I've struggled in this winter season for years now with seasonal depression. And at the end of one summer, I decided to cut every single one of my dinner plate dahlias and give them away to the wives of everyone in my husband's small group. I sent them home with all these flowers. It was so fun to get to do that. And then, of course, all those ladies were so happy to get these beautiful flowers. And it just brought me to a place of going, I want to be able to do this again. This is really fun. I had not grown flowers for a long period of time. I never thought I'd be a gardener. I never thought I'd be giving them away. But I discovered in that moment this joy of sharing with others, and that led me to spend that following fall and winter season planning out a garden. Wow. And it was through that experience of cultivating a garden that I would say I discovered healing for that seasonal depression through Jesus. Every time I would be in the garden, I'd be thinking and dwelling upon the metaphors from the garden instead of my typical kind of downward spiral of struggling and feeling sad about everything. I'd be planting something in the ground and thinking about the hopefulness of the future growth instead of dwelling on the difficulties and death that you see around you when you start out that dreary season to plant things. I'd be thinking, but that death's going to turn into life. And that became a daily anchor moment for me, if you like, of discovering that the Lord speaks to me through the garden. So I continued on that journey through that whole year, learning all the different lessons. There's so many scriptural metaphors in the garden. So I actually started a practice of not just kind of intentionally thinking about it while I was out actively planting or pruning or whatever the action was in the garden. I also spent time in my home just reading the scriptures, reading the Bible verses about the garden and discovering how much the Lord would speak to me through that. So that habit, that meditative habit, became a real moment of healing for me. One that I would say did a couple different things. One, it really helped me to grow in grace for myself, to be okay with having those particular struggles. Mm-hmm. And to grow in grace for others, right? I mean, we come across people who have all sorts of different challenges. And I think I've typically been a person who's found it a lot easier to have grace for others than myself. Mm-hmm. But this gardening habit and the way the Lord would speak to me through it really helped me to learn to accept that grace for me too. And then, of course, as the flowers grew, and as I'm excited that they're going to again soon because it's spring, I got to share that joy with others again. I got to share not just how the Lord had been speaking to me through this practice, but also share the joy of the flowers themselves. And I have met so many amazing people through the flower community, others who grow flowers, but also just people who appreciate nature, appreciate the beauty of nature. And that's been a really fun journey. So I do now get to grow flowers and share them. My daughter, in fact, who, as I mentioned, she's only 11, but she's a budding little small business woman. She decided that I ought to turn this love of flowers into a small business. She had studied that in school, and she decided that I needed to do that too. So it's been a fun way of connecting with her, and then connecting with more people as I've been more intentional about sharing it with others through that. So I have a farm stand now with the flowers. I do bouquet making workshops, and then those meditations on how scripture and the garden come to life. I decided as my own practice I would write them down that year, and my daughter persuaded me to turn it into a book. So it's been a whole life-changing journey, really, with so many little moments along the way. But the way that the Lord has spoken to me through the garden would really be the main theme throughout it all.
Wow, this is like an amazing metaphor for really the gospel message, bringing that new and the growth that comes with Jesus Christ, and love what you have to share. I'm kind of wondering, do you have a favorite flower when you share all this gardening?
That's a great question. Growing up in a family where my mom is an amazing gardener, I'd always been intimidated by it though, and I had never really dabbled in it. Anything, she would often buy me flowers as a present and I would kill them. So I was not particularly confident in my gardening abilities, but the pandemic, I decided, it's worth a try. So I was in Home Depot, which is not far from my house. I'd walked over there. I think it was just me on this occasion. And I stood there looking at the dahlia tuber section for what must have been a long enough time that somebody else noticed, because this older gentleman came up behind me and he just said, "You just need to try it. Just do it. They grow great here. Just get them. They'll be amazing. You won't regret it." So I walked out of Home Depot with 2 little bags of tubers that day. One of them was the breakout dahlias that ended up being that story that I gave them all away, and another was a purple color dahlia. I don't even remember the name of that one. But that was how it all got started. So I put those dahlias in the ground. They really did grow very well. And of course, I had a lot of time to take care of them that first year. What was really amazing about them was I put them in the front of my house. And especially during the pandemic, my neighbors would walk around the neighborhood often. And so every day I'd be out there tending to them. And of course, when they grew into big, big flowers, the neighbors would stop and talk about them. So I would meet people every single day and talk about the flowers with them and get to share them with people. And it just kept growing. I know anybody that's ever grown dahlias knows they are kind of addictive and they just keep multiplying. You can dig them up and divide them, and one plant becomes 2 or 3 plants, and before you know it, you've got 100 dahlias. So this last year I discovered sweet peas, and I am totally head over heels in love with sweet peas. So I have some growing right now in my garden at home, and I'm so excited to grow even more than what I had last year.
I'm going to want to come and check out your garden for sure. And then as you've been sharing, I've been thinking, do you have a favorite verse that comes to mind, that just a gardening verse or something that strikes you?
That's a great question. I think that the one that I just kept coming back to, probably because it's the one everybody knows, is the faith as small as a mustard seed can move mountains. My necklace on today, my sister bought me this necklace with an actual mustard seed in it and a little mountain, because I'd shared with her the journey that I'd been on, and she gave me this as a birthday gift last year.
And for Anchor Moment is so hopeful. It really brings hope to know that just out of that little seed to plant and then to watch what comes out of it, that's what the Lord does in our life with our faith. That is just a beautiful picture for all of us. That dahlia, especially, just the beauty, and the sweet peas you mentioned, just what God can do in our lives, growing newness in everything. Well, we just want to thank you again for joining us. Before we end this, I have to show the book and just say a couple words about this. I just think this is such an amazing special way you put all of your verses and what the Lord's taught you together. Do you want to just say anything else about?
Sure. I mean, the photos in the book, they're all the flowers that I got to grow in the last 12 months. You can see the whole journey, and basically it is my story in fuller form, coupled with all those photographs. So if you're looking for something that gives you just a short meaning for the day, kind of thought for the day, I've tried to make it accessible. So whether you've read the Bible before or not, my hope and my excitement about this book is that if you want a beautiful coffee table style book that gives you some hope for the day, this might be it, or it might be a good gift. That's been something people have done with it too.
I just love the overall theme, growing in God's grace. That is the message of our gospel too. So we just want to say thank you again for joining us, and we just look forward to hearing more. So thanks again.
Thanks.